now for the fun part, we're gonna make some bread. So we ground our flour. What we did, we ground close to 11 cups of wheat, which will give us enough to make our 6 loaves of bread today. What we're gonna do is start with 6 cups of warm water. We want this water to be about 110 to 115 degrees. So what I suggest you do the first couple times you're starting to make your bread is to take a thermometer and measure your water temperature. So I have water here that's between 110 and 115 degrees. You're going to just add your water to your bowl of the bosh. Into that we're going to add 2/3 cup of oil. You can use any kind of oil that you want. Today I'm using olive oil, but canola oil, coconut oil, any kind of oil will work fine, grapeseed oil. And then I'm going to add 2/3 cup of honey as a sweetener. You can also add any kind of sweetener that you'd like. I just find that honey works the best. And if you measure your oil first and then put your honey in, the honey will slip right out. Okay, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of yeast. We're using a SAF instant yeast today. The yeast is very important. And the SAF brand is just a very high quality yeast as well. And then to that we're going to add 2 tablespoons of dough enhancer and 2 tablespoons of vital wheat gluten. The dough enhancer works as a natural preservative because with this flour, with this bread, there are no preservatives in it. So even with the flour, if you weren't to use it today, you need to put it in the freezer. You can refrigerate it for a couple days, but your freezer is your best bet. It's not going to last forever, but at least it won't go rancid. Because if you just left this sitting out on the counter, after about 24 hours it starts to lose its nutrients, and after a few days you pretty much lost the nutrients and it will start to oxidize and turn rancid on you. So if you're ever using a store-bought flour, a whole grain, store-bought, and you're making pancakes and the pancakes kind of taste a little bit bitter or you don't like it, the heaviness, that is because your flour is rancid. So keep a lookout for that. That's why we like to use fresh. So we have our dough enhancer and our gluten. We need to add a little bit of gluten to this bread simply because when we were going through the vials and I said that, the white flour is all gluten, the whole wheat, the gluten is just a little part. The yeast will make the bread rise, but that gluten will hold the rise and will also give you a nice texture. So when you cut the bread, it will not crumble on you. It'll be nice and soft. So like I said, you want your family to eat it and you don't want to make bricks because that's a waste of time. So the gluten helps with that. To this, we're going to add about 5 cups of flour. Like I said, nothing is exact when you're making bread, so you don't have to, measure everything and level it. The only thing that you're going to need to have more exact is the amount of flour, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit because the bosh is actually going to tell us when we have enough flour. So we stuck it in our bosh here, and we're going to just turn it on and mix this for about 15 seconds. We did that initial mix because we want to mix up all the ingredients that we put in there so far to give it a nice creamy mixture because we're going to add some salt. We don't want to add salt to yeast because, just like brothers and sisters, they complement each other, but as long as they're not touching each other. So we don't want our salt to interact too much with the yeast because then it won't work. Okay, so now we're ready to add the salt. We're going to use some real salt here. We're going to add 2 tablespoons. And then turn on your bosh. And you add flour 1 cup at a time until it incorporates, and then you add another cup. And when the dough pulls away from the sides of the bowl, that's when we're done adding flour. Which is going to be about a total of 14 to 18 cups of flour for the whole batch. as it incorporates, it's going to start to get a little heavier. And also you'll hear the Bosch kind of downshift almost to kind of keep up to the heaviness of the dough. That's perfectly fine, and that's what the Bosch is designed to do. See how it's pulling? We're almost there, but there's a little bit of a stringiness to it. So we're going to add just a little bit more flour. See, the bowl sides are clean. What we're going to do now is just stick the lid on, turn it up to speed 2, and set our timer for 6 minutes. Okay, so we've let our dough knead for 6 minutes. Now all you need is a clean counter space with some oil. So the same oil that you use to put in your bread, you can put right on your counter. If you're using granite, it's probably not the best choice to do it right on your countertop. Get like a breadboard or something so it's not directly on that granite. But any other countertop will work fine. So with nice oiled hands, just kind of push the dough off of your dough hook. And I always like to have a sink full of soapy water. I can just throw my dirty stuff in so it doesn't get hard dough on it. And then plop your dough out. It should all come out in one big plunk. Okay. So we don't have to knead this dough anymore because, you know, the Bosch did that all for us, but we do want to make a nice little kind of blob. So now we have our blob of dough, so we need to decide what we're going to do with it. While it's kneading, or even before you start, you should kind of plan out what you're going to do with your dough because you have a lot of it. What we're going to do today is just a few loaves of bread and some cinnamon rolls and a cinnamon swirl bread. Just very basic. You can do pizza, you can do focaccia bread. There's a lot of stuff you can do. So we're going to prep our pans. Mix our pans up. I use Vegeline. I like Vegeline. It doesn't leave film on my pans. It's a very good high quality baking spray. Okay, so now I have my big blob of dough. I'm going to make 3 loaves of bread, a loaf of cinnamon swirl bread, and a pan of cinnamon rolls, a favorite in our house. I have my scale out. It's nice to always measure your dough so you have uniform loaves of bread. I know that my pans here are 1 pound 4 ounce loaves, and my pan of cinnamon rolls is going to be 2 pounds. When you're working with the fresh dough, you want to make sure that you don't pull and, you know, stretch it out. You just want to be gentle with it and pinch your dough rather than, you know, tear it apart, because when you tear it, you break the gluten strands in it, and you want to just keep those real nice and together. So then you just make nice little loaves of bread. It's going to be about 1 pound 4 ounce. And roll it up. You can bang it if you want. You can, you know, pat it a little bit. You just want to get some of those air bubbles out. So this is the part where my kids will run in and want bread. They want bread dough to play with. My daughter Izzy, she's 5 right now. Just by giving her a little bit of dough, she will sit at the countertop and she will play with it and play and use the cookie cutters and sprinkles, and she's made her own sprinkle bread concoctions, and it's just really fun for kids to play with. It's not messy, and they just make things out of it. You can make, you know, teddy bear bread, as they call it, where they actually make like the teddy bear head and the teddy bear body and all that out of it. It's just really fun for them. So even when their friends come over, we'll oftentimes make bread, and they just play with the dough, and then we bake it, and then they eat it, and they think it's great. So the more you can incorporate them in your kitchen, helping you do this, the more they'll love it. That's going to be my cinnamon roll bread. And I said 4 loaves of bread, but I guess I didn't calculate exactly how many loaves I was going to get out of this. So we're going to have a little bit extra. Okay, so this is going to be my cinnamon swirl right here. And this is going to be just another loaf of bread. Oil another couple pans. So right now I'm going to do the cinnamon swirl. What works the best is to take your loaf pan that you want to use and just set it in front of your dough. I'm not going to do that right at this moment because you won't be able to see what I'm doing. And just with your hands, just kind of stretch it out. You can do this with any kind of bread. You can put anything you want in it. Jalapenos and cheddar cheese is real popular, real good. You can do garlic salt and Parmesan cheese and some butter. You can put herbs in here. I mean, you know, the options are endless. Then I have some melted butter here. I'm going to put a little melted butter on it. And I just use my hands. You can use a little brush if you want to, but just to kind of keep things easy and more fun, I just use my hands. Okay, and now what I have here is some cinnamon sugar. We're just going to sprinkle some cinnamon sugar on here. And we go through a lot of cinnamon sugar in our house, so I like to make my own. You don't need to buy anything special. I use an organic sugar, probably 2/3 sugar to 1/3 cinnamon. And we put it on toast, we put it on our bananas, we put it on a lot of different things. So as you're rolling up your cinnamon swirl bread, you want to just kind of brush butter on each of the seams. So as it rises, it will rise and stick together. So you don't have a gaping hole when you cut your bread. And just dump it in the pan. So now we're going to do with our cinnamon rolls, and we're going to take just the last 2 pounds of bread dough. And for the rolls, I like to use a roller. You don't need to use a roller with the breads because you want it to be a little bit thicker. So you just have to roll out a nice rectangle. There's not an exact size it has to be, but you just want it to be fairly uniform on the sides. I like to use a roller because it's easier to get that nice rectangle shape. And you can press a little bit harder, and it holds its shape a little bit better than just by pushing with my fingers. Okay, so I have a nice rectangle. And I'm going to use some more butter. Just push that butter around. And now with the cinnamon rolls, we're going to use brown sugar because you do want it a little more kind of gooey and yummy. So you just take brown sugar and just spread your brown sugar around. Don't worry about the lumps or anything. And if you think that you don't have enough brown sugar, just add a little bit more because you probably don't. Because this is going to give you just a real nice caramely texture to your rolls. And like I said, don't worry about the lumps. Okay, to that I'm going to sprinkle some cinnamon. The smell is so good. These are just going to be plain today, but you can add, again, anything that you want to add in here. A real good variety is to add some craisins and some pecans, some white chocolate chips. That's very good. You can do raisins in here. Do some walnuts. Just kind of anything that you like, just throw them in and it'll probably taste good because it's in a cinnamon roll. Okay, so when you're doing the rolls, you don't need to seal it with any butter, but you do want to make sure that you pull and roll like real tight. You just do want a tight seal on this. So if you notice, I'm kind of pulling it and I'm kind of rolling it at the same time. I don't need the oil or the butter in each seam because it's not rising, and I don't have to cut it like a piece of bread. So I'm not going to, cut it in the swirl. And if you find that you have a really fat part of your roll, then you can always just pull it out a little bit. Okay, and then take a bench scraper, and we kind of use our 2-finger rule. You just kind of put 2 fingers down and you make your rolls about 2-finger widths deep. So 2 fingers, cut, 2 fingers, cut. If you get them smaller than that, I mean, they're just going to be really short. So kind of go all the way down the line. And the end ones are fine. I'll show you a little trick to make those flat. And then you just take your pan. I like to use this pan. It's one of my favorite ones. It's got a baking mat on it. So I don't have to use parchment paper. But if you're not using a baking mat, you do want to put some parchment paper down. That will keep it from sticking to your pan too much. And it will also give you a nice uniform, a uniform bake. And then just plop them on. And don't worry about it if yours aren't perfect looking or, pretty, or think that they're kind of not perfect. Cinnamon rolls do not have to be perfect. They will rise and they will taste phenomenal. So it doesn't matter what they look like. And the more that you practice, the more easy it will become, and the more uniform they'll become as well. So now what we're going to do with this bread is we are going to let it rise for about 30 minutes. I like to put mine in my oven to let it rise in the oven. But you can let it rise just, on your stovetop or on your countertop, wherever. You don't need to cover them. Some people say cover them. I say that's just an extra thing to do, so you don't really have to do that either. But when they rise to double, then we're going to bake them at 350 to 375, depending on how hot your oven is. I like to do my bread at 350 on convection. And then my bread is going to bake for about 30 minutes, and my cinnamon rolls are going to bake for about 20. I've let my bread rise now for about 30 minutes, and as you can see, it's crusting over the top of the pan. You don't want to let it rise too high, because if you let it go too high, it's going to look really great now, and then it's going to bake, and it's going to collapse on you, and you don't want that. So just until it's crusting over the top of the pan a little bit. So we're just going to add all these to the oven, or back in the oven. I actually let them rise in there. It just gives it a nice warm spot to rise. And then I preheat my oven with my bread inside. So if you find that you have an oven that preheats really fast, it might not be a good idea to go this route. Just let them, preheat your oven first and then throw them in. I'm going to heat it at 350. Set my timer for 25 minutes. Then I'll check my cinnamon rolls. They should be done by then. And my bread will take about 35 minutes. Okay, my cinnamon rolls are done. So we're going to take those out and then let the bread go for another 10 minutes or so. Oh, they smell so good. I'm just going to put these back here for the time being. Okay, my bread just baked for about 35 minutes. So we are going to take it out and see what we have here. It's beautiful. Just going to take them all out, and then you can take them out of your pan. You don't want to leave them sit in your pan too long because the bottoms will get soggy. Oh, they look good. Now, for me personally, what I would do with my families, I would leave 3 out, and I would freeze the rest of them. So I have bread for at least a whole week, if not 2. But I know that we're going to eat 1 loaf today. We're going to eat 1 loaf tomorrow. And the 3rd loaf, probably about the 3rd or 4th day, we'll eat that up. But it'll last about 4 to 5 days out. Anything longer than, if you're not going to eat it right away or within the 3 days, you do want to freeze it. You can tell my shorter one is the cinnamon swirl bread. That was a little bit smaller of a loaf. Whoops. squeeze them all on here. I wish you could smell it in this house. It smells so good. I was reading one day, not too long ago, that it talked about different smells and things that you remember from your childhood or things that make you feel good and secure. And the smell of fresh baked bread is one of those security feelings. So it just makes you feel loved. It makes you feel just like you belong there. It just makes you feel secure. So when I read that, I was kind of choked up a little bit because, you know, I like to do that for my family, and I remember the smell of my grandma's house when I was growing up. And just the smell of that warmth. If you have any questions about what you saw today, about purchasing a Bosch or a Nutri-Mill grain mill or baking bread or any recipes at all, I'd be more than happy to help you. Just contact me. And if you're ready to get the white flour out of your family's diet, I'm here to help you. Simply eat real.